You know, I always wanted to make a movie. I don't know if you know, I do this thing called hit record, and that's really the beginning of it. Is that symbol of pushing the red button, sort of like get started, just do it, you know. Yeah. And yeah, so then it was a couple years of just having ideas and taking notes and brainstorming and coming up with different versions of how the movie could work. And then a good year after that of actually writing it into a screenplay. Before I really showed anybody, I maybe talked to some people about it, but I didn't show it to anybody. And the first person I ever showed a draft of the script to was Ryan Johnson, who wrote and directed Looper and Brick. And when he told me, hey, you really have something here, I think this is good, that was the beginning of the new, you know, the new phase. Like, I mean, there was a ton of hard work after that, but I kind of got over that doubt and resolved, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to follow through and make this movie. Well, acting and directing at the same time is a challenge. You know, a lot of actors, and I've felt this before myself, it's hard to see the sight of your own face, the sound of your own, you know, hear the sound of your own voice. But I've been doing it for a long time. For my 21st birthday, I got myself my first copy of Final Cut Pro, which is a video editing software. And ever since then, I've been, you know, shooting little things, oftentimes pointing the camera at myself, cutting them together. I've made a ton of little short films and videos, tons of them. And I think just that practice, getting used to it, seeing myself and editing myself, I got to the point where I could be productive.
Speaking of hit record, I was wondering if you crowdsourced any input from any of the users, perhaps? Or...
Yeah, good question. Not for this movie.
Okay.
This movie is completely traditionally made, even though there are a few artists that worked on it from the hit record community. Wiro did some graphic design. Mark, our creative director, did the titles. Campaign, one of the musicians, is on the soundtrack. But no, this one was really traditionally made. I one day want to make a feature film with our hit record process, the whole collaborative community-made thing. But I thought that before we did that, it was important that I direct one in a more traditional, you know, traditional method, and have that experience first.
You were just talking about doing your own shorts. Do you find that your own instincts and ideas as a director like ever intrude on projects where you're working strictly as an actor?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so. I really hold as a very high tenet when I'm acting that the director is the director. It's really important to do that because there's no good that can come out of you trying to struggle against the director. The director's the director. You have to work within that. You know, I do my best. I do ask directors a lot of questions, but it's not out of second guessing them. It's just because I want to understand as well as I can what the director has in mind so that I can deliver what they need. You know, and my favorite directors are the ones who enjoy those sorts of questions. Chris Nolan or Ryan Johnson or you know, people like that. You can ask them. I'm constantly asking them all sorts of little questions, and they're always, you know, interested in answering. And if they don't have the answer right off the top of their head because they've thought of it before, then we'll figure it out together. But the director's the one who's going to take the footage that you shoot as an actor and cut it together into a performance. The truth is, an actor's performance in a film is equally created by the actor, yes, but also by the director and the editor and everything else. It's, you know, it's really a collaborative thing. So as an actor, you have to be ready and willing to just put yourself in the hands of the filmmaker, and I do keep that in mind.
As far as the writing goes, it was a really strong script, I thought, and the dialogue was excellent. Was there anything that you changed after you saw it, like as a director? Did you go back and change something, or was the script as it is the first time, or your final draft?
It's pretty similar. It's substantially similar. I mean, of course, you're always tweaking and changing stuff, but like none of this, like there aren't any deleted scenes. There aren't any scenes in a new order. It's pretty similar. I mean, to me, the most striking difference is all the actors bring so much to their characters. That, I mean, I was very happy with the script, but if you compare the Barbara Sugarman character on the page to what Scarlett actually did, what she did is so much more interesting and textured and funny and charming, and like, because she just brought all those, you know, those details, those human, lifelike details to her character that you couldn't write into a script. And really the same goes for all the performances. I think it's autobiographical in that it's a movie about how people can feel objectified and objectify each other. And I think that's something that is pretty universal, actually. We all go through it. And that way, I think the movie is quite mainstream. Yeah. And, you know, sure, you're referring to the symbol of pornography in the movie. And maybe that isn't considered mainstream, but let's be honest. It's more popular than any other kind of media. So I never thought of it as anything but a pop movie, a mainstream movie. And yeah, and as far as, you know, why I chose it, it's something that I've always noticed. What's getting in the way of love? It's how we don't treat each other as unique human beings, and we don't really pay attention to what makes us all individuals, but instead we're always comparing each other to this checklist of expectations that we have. Right. And we've learned those expectations from different places, from our upbringing, our family, our friends, our churches, and also from different kinds of media. And that particularly fascinates me, and is probably, you know, if you ask what's autobiographical about it, I've worked in movies and TV my whole life, and so I've always been particularly interested in how media impacts our culture and our perspectives on things. And so that's why the story centers around a relationship between a guy who watches too much pornography and a girl who watches too many romantic Hollywood movies. I thought that'd be a really funny way to get at that question of how does media impact our lives and our love lives in particular. I liked the title Don John's Addiction. First of all, it's a little, I think it's actually a little too long. And the biggest reason why I wanted to change it to Don John is just because it's short and sweet and easy to remember. And like, a lot of the titles I like are simple, you know, Looper. Yeah. But then, yeah, I do think, you know, I called it Don John's Addiction because, you know, the way that John is with his pornography is sort of a symbol for what the movie's ultimately about. But because it's such a sensational thing, everyone was focusing on that symbol and thinking that that's what the movie was about. And I just wrote, I posted it on the internet the other day, it's sort of like saying that the Maltese Falcon is a movie about a statue of a falcon. Like, it's not really the point of the movie, even though they're always talking about that statue of the falcon, and it's, you see it throughout the movie, it's the last shot of the movie, but that's not what the movie's about. And so, you know, I titled it with the word from the central symbol, but I ended up taking that word out because it's just a symbol. It's not really what, you know, the movie's ultimately about this guy, Don John, who, you know, at the beginning of the movie objectifies everything in his life, whether it's women or his own body, his house, his car, his friends, his family. Everything is this object to be consumed rather than like you know, something that he's truly engaging with. And then by the end of the movie, he begins to sort of get out of that rut, and that's what the movie's about.